Our State of the U.S. segment tonight, we're still awaiting a nomination for Secretary of State. Seems like every day the so-called shortlist changes. A couple days ago, it looked like Giuliani was the front runner. Today, he's nowhere to be seen. Now it's General Petraeus visiting Trump Tower and Mitt Romney eating dinner with Trump. To weigh in on all this, Sam Faddis, former CIA officer. Hi, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Good to be here again.
All right, Sam, give me your take on this. Who's it going to be for Secretary of State? Romney, Petraeus, John Bolton?
I'm going to guess that it's not going to be General Petraeus. I have a lot of respect for him, but I think that's setting the administration up for a fight, given the issues with his access to classified information in the past. I have a hard time believing it's going to be Mitt Romney. It's just too much water over the dam. So if those are my three choices, I'm going to go with Ambassador Bolton.
Right. It's hard to say at this point. I mean, I think we're all playing the prediction game here, but it seems like the perfect candidate hasn't come along. So maybe President-elect Trump will still surprise us. Sam, you worked in the CIA for a long time. What do you think of Trump's choice to head the CIA, Congressman Mike Pompeo?
So I think Congressman Pompeo has a strong record. I think he is in the right place politically for this administration. I think what's the critical thing is really what his marching orders are from the president when he arrives. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to fix CIA and make it more effective. And the only way that's going to happen is if the president of the United States says go there and make it happen.
Right. Essentially what you're calling for then is an overhaul. I'm actually going to read you something from an article that you wrote today, a very good piece. You say, ever since 9/11, we've responded to the threats of terrorism and the obvious weaknesses in our human intelligence collection capabilities by doing exactly the wrong thing. We've thrown money, people, and processes at the problems, ignoring the fact that in the world of intelligence, bigger is not better. Bigger is slow, bigger is cumbersome, bigger is hard to hide. So, Sam, explain that. Elaborate on that a little bit. What would an overhaul like that look like?
What it looks like is going back to your roots, recognizing that espionage is an art, a craft, not a science. A standard federal bureaucracy cannot run espionage operations. You need a lean, flat organization filled with just the right mix of people. And you need the president to give it the latitude to go out and do audacious things. So none of that comes from a wiring diagram or a bureaucratic paper shuffling. That comes from something very different, and we haven't had that at CIA in a long time.
Right, and I guess that's the philosophical way to speak that. What does that mean practically? I mean, do you expect Trump to eliminate the DNI?
I think it would be a great thing if we started by getting rid of the DNI, because the DNI constitutes a layer of bureaucracy on top of the existing intelligence agencies. It doesn't add anything to the fight. I think it means that if Pompeo goes to CIA, he needs to bring in people at CIA to run operations who understand that this work is not done back in headquarters. It's done on the ground, in the field, by people who've spent 20, 30 years out there learning languages, learning the cultures, and knowing how to get things done. It's an emphasis back on field operations and on results, not process.
Right. It's essentially loosening the leash and saying, hey, you guys in the field know what you're doing. Do it under these guidelines, but we're not going to, this large bureaucracy is not going to get in your way and impede the tactics that you use to achieve the goal.
Right. For CIA to be effective, it has to be a field-centric organization. And to be clear, I'm not talking about being rogue. None of this is contrary to U.S. law. None of this is the kind of thing that is done sloppily. This is by the numbers professionals, but professionals who know what they're about and understand that more and more meetings back in Washington, D.C. doesn't mean more sources and doesn't mean better intelligence.
Right. Let me push back on you just for a second, though, because you talk about this doesn't mean going rogue. And I think that everyone doesn't want our intelligence agencies to be violating U.S. or international law. But Sam, how did we get here? Because there has been some history in our intelligence agencies of extrajudicial type activities. And I think that's where bureaucracy comes from. It comes from perhaps a good-willed intention to prevent wrongdoing. It just ends up impeding the good that the people do as well.
Right. I would agree with you 100%. Some of this is the Central Intelligence Agency brought on itself. I'm not, as I say, I'm talking about professionalism. The United States Marine Corps is one of the most lethal organizations on the face of the planet, maybe the most lethal. Nobody goes to bed at night worrying about the United States Marine Corps working contrary to U.S. interests because they understand it is incredibly professional, disciplined, and works for the people. That's exactly the ethic you need at CIA. It needs to be something that your enemies don't want to see, but always works within the laws of the United States.
Right, and I think that's key, the word that you just said, U.S. interests here. Sam, I want to switch topics on you just a little bit. This was another piece of yours that I read today. You were talking about Iraq. You were actually talking about the work that the intelligence community has done in Iraq, but then you were talking about the failed strategy of Obama, that we're starting to see that come true before our eyes as we see Iraqi forces, coalition forces led by the United States retake Mosul. And you basically contend that this is a very short-sighted strategy by the Obama administration, that it's not going to stop the violence, it's not going to stop the conflict, it's not even necessarily going to be the good of the future of Iraq.
Right. Well, the Obama administration paints this as us assisting a unified Iraqi government to drive out a terrorist group. Okay, obviously we need to drive out ISIS. But the reality is that a very large number of the people on the ground fighting this fight in Mosul are effectively creatures of Tehran. They work in Shia militias that were built by Tehran. They answer to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. We are flying air cover for and providing logistical support for what amounts to an Iranian takeover of Iraq. After Mosul falls and ISIS is defeated in Iraq, within 6 months, I would imagine that the Iranians and their puppets will be telling us it's time for us to go home, that we've done our work and delivered Iraq to the Iranians.
Right, and just to make sure I understand this, essentially what you're saying is after Mosul falls, the real battle will begin, and you expect the Shia militants here, backed by Iran, to almost turn on us, turn on America.
Yeah, I think there's no question. It's not almost. They absolutely will turn on us. They will invite us to leave, and if you don't leave, you will find that the next people they're attacking are you. They will be attacking American forces, just as they did during the occupation, by the way. A lot of the key players here in these Shia militia were, in fact, involved in attacks on American forces years ago. Right now, they're cooperating with us because it suits their interest. They will turn back to their previous activity in a heartbeat.
Right, it's almost putting too much stock in human nature to believe that we have similar goals to they do. Very interesting analysis, Sam. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's always good to talk to you.